This is Eric from Astrology for Awakening, where we examine the current astrological aspects as invitations to realize and to embody greater goodness, truth, and beauty in our lives. And right now we're looking at Mercury conjunct Mars. So Mercury is the mind, and particularly we're going to focus on Mercury as the agent of speech, the way that we take thought and we translate it into language and express it out into the world. Mars is the impulse, the energy of doing. It is like the fiery energy of our being that wants to take action now. And so when that mind and the heat of Mars comes together, it offers us a powerful opportunity to reflect on what? The power of words. In the wisdom traditions around the world, often coded in mythic language, words are powerful. Words are creative. In most esoteric schools, this universe, this life, this moment of experience is being spoken into existence. Most of you will be familiar with the phrase, "In the beginning was the Word." This is found in the East and in the West. That initial vibration of creation, the pure Om sound that then gave birth to this life, to this world, to this universe, to this cosmos, precipitates down into infinite forms of expression. Everything in existence, from the rocks to the planets, to the plants, to the people that you encounter are made up of, are woven of different vibratory frequencies, different vibratory densities. And you could say, as the mystics have said, that everything is condensed sound. Everything is the word. So words are not just signifiers, although they can be that. Words are also powers. And when we speak, we are wielding that power. We are utilizing that power. All of our words, all of our speech, the Mercury function, is imbued with power. And if it's fueled by unprocessed trauma and emotions, that power can be utilized in ways that are less than nourishing, less than healing, less than effective. So it's important for us to tune in, especially this time when Mercury and Mars are together, with how are we using the power of our speech. Remember that our bodies and our subconscious minds, which are woven into the very cells of our body, hold the residue of our history and the history of the kind or cruel words that we have taken in. And when we step into situations of difference or conflict, those unprocessed emotions can bubble up and usurp our capacity, take over our capacity to use the power of words wisely. So as Mercury is conjunct Mars, I'm going to offer you 3 questions to ask before speaking. These are 3 questions that you find in different forms in the mystical practices of East and West. They are 3. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Let's break them down, because they invite us to reflect on the nature of our speech, the intention behind our speech, and the wisdom of speaking now. So the 3 questions provide us a structured way of pausing before speaking, because remember, Mars is a very quick energy. It's associated with symbols like the spark that can ignite the forest fire. It's associated with symbols like the slashing of a knife, to sever the enemy's limb. Of course, it's also associated with the fire that's banked and contained in the stove and thus can cook our food. It's also associated with the surgeon's knife that can cut to heal. So whether our words, that Mercury function, is going to be nourishing and healing or violent and harmful can be discerned if we pause and tune into these three questions. Let's take them one at a time. Is it true? So this question invites us to notice the tendency to distort, to delete, to amplify the facts of the situation, to simply notice this, because in a very fundamental way, as linguists point out, it's inevitable to some degree. It's an inevitable consequence of using language that we will be interpreting. We will be telling a story, even if we are trying to offer the facts. But this question, is it true, invites us to pause and to notice any tendencies that we may be having to spin, no matter how gently, the presentation of our facts in order to protect ourselves, in order to be acceptable, to be liked, in order to smooth things over, or in order to dominate the conversation and to win the argument. Is it true? The next question takes us a little deeper. Is it kind? This is a very important reflection when Mars is linked to Mercury. Because remember, Mars is known as the god of war, and that impulse to interpret any kind of difference in opinions or differences in perspective as threats, and as the people who hold those differences as enemies. Mars, when undeveloped, will divide the world into hunters and prey. And you want to be, in this case, Mars wants to be the hunter. It's victory or die. And you can sense, perhaps in your own personal history, how that motto may have fueled many arguments, not just on the world stage where it's so obvious, but even around the dinner table, where it may be laughably mundane many decades later, but was vital at the moment. So kindness is the antidote to imbalanced Mars, because kindness invites us to notice. To notice what? The temperature of our own blood. Blood is a Martian symbol, the red blood. And is it boiling? Or is it simmering and starting to boil? Tuning into the temperature of our blood is a way of pausing and self-regulating. Is it kind? Kindness opens us up. Kindness opens the aperture of our awareness to include and to reflect on the impact our words will have on others. Will what I'm about to say trigger defensiveness, shame, despair? Or will it, like a beautiful Mars energy, will it strengthen them? Because I know that strengthening another does not weaken myself. Will it enliven and clarify the conversation without amplifying the struggle? Kindness is not smoothing things over. It's not kind. Because Mars, in its healthy expression, is inviting us to be direct. Mars is asking us to simplify our message down to its essence. It's like a cook who has some vinegar, and they are putting it on the stove and heating it. That's the Mars symbol, in order to create a reduction. the heat of Mars is trying to invite us to reduce, to create a reduction of our message, to boil out, as it were, to purify out, heat out the excess liquid, like the chef is doing with the balsamic vinegar. And the liquid is a symbol of our unprocessed emotions. So is it is it a way of self-reflecting on purifying out the angular emotions and to reduce the balsamic vinegar, or to reduce the message to its essence? Because smoothing things over doesn't actually channel the healthy energy of Mars. Instead, it leads to a kind of passive-aggressive speech. In passive-aggressive speech, the anger, the violence, the attack is still there, but it's now clothed in kind of politeness and some kind of socially acceptable garb. But the problem is that such speech still stings. The passive-aggressive speech still cuts, and thus can trigger, sooner or later, an angry, outraged response from others. So kindness, is it kind? Kindness is laying your cards out clearly on the table, not to defeat the enemy, but just to make your point as easy to understand, as clear, as direct as possible. Is it necessary? The third question. So Mars and Mercury, when that Mars is out of balance and when it's pushing the Mercury into a fiery spin, it brings about a sense of urgency. This is the moment. If we don't act now, all is lost. Mars then becomes the symbol of the knight who's galloping madly into the fray, to save the day. And any delay can seem like a defeat. So is this an emergency? If I don't say anything right now, we'll all be lost? Take a breath. Because when Mars is boiling, it creates a tunnel vision. It narrows our perspective. And this is what happens when adrenaline, which is associated with Mars, is coursing through our system. It's part of our evolutionary inheritance. And it's effective. It's been effective evolutionarily for our vision to narrow and our focus to become hyper-clarified when there is a threat, when there is a tiger potentially in the bush. Yeah, we want to narrow and we want to focus, but that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. You're not in a life or death situation, more than likely. But the primitive areas of the brain don't know that. And so when the vision narrows and the hyper-focus comes in, we tend to impulsively react. Is it necessary? This is a question that asks us and invites us to expand our horizon of awareness, to slow down, to listen more, to talk less, to be curious, and to soothe our own nervous systems, and to notice how doing so shifts the energy, the interpersonal energy in the room. Many Martian-fueled disagreements will cool down on their own. A client of mine, an executive in organizational development, taught me something beautiful many years ago when she would be involved in a contentious conversation and would notice the heat and the blood starting to simmer. She would pause and say, you have given me a lot to think about. And that was true. When we're activated, we have been given a lot to think about. We can reduce it to these three questions. We've been given the opportunity to think about, is what I'm about to say true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? You've given me a lot to think about. The beauty of that true statement is it creates a space. And she would often say, I want to think about all of this. This is important. Your points, my points, I really want to clarify them. Let's get together tomorrow and talk. Is it necessary to do it right now in the heat of the moment? No, it's not. So our words of power. What we say matters. The way that we speak, the words and the way that we deliver them are shaping not just our own experience, but our interpersonal, our social experiences that we have together. The way that we speak creates a vibratory atmosphere within our bodies and in our homes, in our workplaces, in our collective communities. So this aspect of Mars-Mercury is an opportunity for us to slow down and to get laser focused on, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And having passed through that assessment, to then offer our words as healing gifts into the conversation that is our life.